Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people in quarantine all over the world, welcome back to the Run It Back podcast. Times like these, you need some entertainment, boys, and I'm glad we can provide it. Episode number 20 coming in hot. Not as hot as you do if you've got a fever, but a little bit hotter than that. First, before we get into it, I've got to introduce my co-host, DL. How are we today?
Mate, I'm good. I've actually been looking forward to this episode, Snagz. Q&A.
Agreed.
Finally here.
First Q&A show. We've been talking about this bad boy for a couple of weeks now.
Been looking forward to it, mate. I am excited. We're also introducing a new segment tonight on the podcast, Start, Bench, Cut, which has been doing the rounds. Shout out Bleacher Report, OGs in the game. We're attempting an MMA version, so between our Q&As, we're just going to break it up. We've also got a quick recap on the card that from our last podcast, which was the last UFC card before everything went crazy. So Fight Night 170, just do a quick recap. We only had 3 picks on that card, so it won't take too long. Probably have some breaking news with Stoney. Actually, speaking of Stoney, might introduce the man. He's usually in the studio with me, but not today. Got Stoney in self-isolation day. Stoney's everything all right?
DL, everything is fine, but you're right, it is a strange feeling. This is my first potty where I've not been sitting across from you in the studio, and I've got to say, it's a bit lonely.
Mate, I can imagine. I think we've got another bloke on the podcast as well, Suga, well and fit.
Mate, I've got to introduce him. My man, I've missed him on the potty in the interviews because I've had to announce some people's names and I can't do it without him. But Statman, how are we today?
I'm doing very well, Sugar. I think you did very, very well. I'm proud of you. It's beautiful to watch you grow and in this game.
Couldn't have done it without you, mate.
Proud.
Solid
I really appreciate your ongoing support and direction in me verbalising people's names.
Impressive.
Hey, look, boys, we're going to get straight into the podcast. We're going to recap 170 Fight Night, and the Statman is going to do that one for us. Statman.
Beautiful. So, obviously, we split up the 2 fight nights upcoming with 5 picks. Unfortunately, only 1 card ended up going through. So, we've only had the 3 picks. So, the 3 fights that we chose our fights for. Nikita Krylov defeated Johnny Walker by unanimous decision. Gilbert Burns defeated Damian Maia. Of course, 2 grapplers going head-to-head. Of course, it ended by TKO in the first round. And then Charles Oliveira defeated Kevin Lee. Beautiful guillotine choke in the third as well. So, obviously, 3 out of the 5 typically that we normally pick. But still a little bit of movement on the old chart. So, it was not a great showing for DL or Stoney, both coming out 0 from 3. Ouch. Suga Snagz, he picked up Gilbert Burns, so he ended up with 1 on the board, and yours truly, 2 on the board. Didn't lost a bit of faith in Johnny Walker the previous fight, and kind of proved to be well warranted. Ended up picking up 2 points out of 3. Looking at the chart, I'm still coming last, but there's room for improvement.
A lot of movement.
You went in so confident.
A lot of movement.
I'm creeping up. I'm creeping up.
A lot of movement.
So I'm at 22 currently. DL, former champion, is now in 3rd position with 24.
I'm in between camps. I'm just going to probably change
camps. And we have co-champions, which is always a little bit embarrassing, but Suga Snagz and Stoney both sitting atop the pyramid with 25 points.
Get it, boy. Coming for you. No fights for me to come on top, though. That's a bit disappointing, but I'm glad to be equal on the top with the... not the undisputed. You were the interim champion, baby, because I'm coming for you.
With the champ. No, it's good to still be up there. When you said 0 on 3, I thought, oh God, I've lost the belt, but no, I'm co-holding the belt, so I'm still pretty happy.
Tag team champs, baby.
There's no tag team.
Boys, how did we find the card? No crowd in that audience, so no crowd there. For Brazil's usually quite restless. It's quite a weird, eerie feeling watching them back that.
A bit different, but I didn't mind it. You got to hear a lot more
coaching and
the
stuff,
corners talk and stuff like that, which was pretty cool.
Did it feel less impactful? Did it feel less eventful, or less of an event, I should say, to have no audience participation, specifically in Brazil?
I think any event it'll feel like that. To be honest,
let me stop you there, boys. There might be one of the questions in our Q&A response. So
hold my phone.
Stay tuned. Well, that's a perfect segue. I like that, boys. Well done. Good work. Q&A. Let's kick it off. A person that's been on the podcast before, at JJ Rocker, he's asked us, boys, your top pound for pound right now. Statman.
I'll head up. So number 5, Tony Ferguson. Number 4, Stipe Miocic. Number 3, Amanda Nunes. Number 2, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And number 1, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And you'll notice I've left out a gentleman who has had a bizarre track record of late, losing fights and then getting the decision, and also testing positive for steroids in probably his most impressive performance. John Jones will not feature on my pound-for-pound list. So Khabib Nurmagomedov takes out number 1, Demetrius Johnson number 2.
You say that with a bit of fire behind you, don't you?
No, I'm furious. I'd fight him right now. He's ruined. I could
need
talk
to
about this.
settle down
I'm
a
going to have
bit.
my
Mate,
own podcast.
You're an 8, need you at a 5 right now, okay, mate? I need you to settle down.
John. I'm coming for you, boy.
Stoney, who have you got?
Yeah, look, I just off the top, shout out to Demetrius Johnson not getting forgotten in the Statman top 5. Kudos, because I've also got him in my top 5. I've got him coming in at 5th, and it might be a little bit rough on poor old Demetrius, but I think just not being in the UFC, not getting that exposure, he probably just drops off the radar a little bit. But his last loss in 2011, he's had one loss since 2011, and if we're being really picky about that, it was a split decision with my boy Henry Cejudo, which arguably could have gone either way. Number 4, I've got the Bullet, Valentina. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think she's got the best fight IQ in the UFC. At number 3, John Jones, at his peak, was the best MMA fighter I've ever seen, but as the Statman will take the words out of my mouth, the best of John Jones is a long way behind us now. At number 2, I've got Amanda Nunes, absolutely crushed Cyborg, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, Misha Tate. Got 2 wins over Shevchenko, just destroying everybody that comes at her. I think you can't have her not in the top 2. And then obviously Khabib. I can't see anything else he needs to do to cement his legacy as the greatest of all time, bar perhaps beating George St. Pierre. And whether that fight ever happens, I'm not sure, but it'd be the cherry on top of a fantastic career if it did.
JJ Rocker might be excited by that one, mate. It's nice.
Agree.
I've got Khabib coming in at number 5.
Oh,
Yeah, probably.
Holy
yeah,
dooly.
harsh, but probably could have been higher.
You said that.
Valentina for me coming in at number 4. I've slipped my boy in Izzy, so he's up there, number 3. And then sort of similar to Stoney there, I've gone Amanda Nunes. I don't know how you can not have her in the top 2. And John Jones Bones in there at number 1, mate. I think apart from what Statman says, he's still got the most impeccable record.
juicy record.
Very juicy. Oh,
Juicy.
hang on. Sucked into that. But John Jones for me is number 1. Snags, what do you got for your top 5 pound for
DL,
pound?
you're going to be rather excited about this. I put Izzy in at number 5 for myself.
Nice.
I think in the next couple of fights that he has, he'll be able to cement himself a pretty hefty legacy. Number 4, I've gone the local just because I love him to death and I can see him fighting Holloway again and just cementing his legacy as one of the GOATs of all time. I've got Volk, the Great, Alexander the Great, my boy at number 4. Number 3, I've gone the GOAT of the female world, obviously Amanda Nunes. I don't see her getting beat anytime soon. And she's done some big things in all of women's MMA. And then I've got Khabib at number 2. And then much to the Statman's dismay, I've got John Jones at number 1.
Would you call him also the GOAT of all time?
Mate, I don't need you to ask me questions after I have just displayed an absolutely wonderful top 5. Thank you very much. But no, I would not call him the GOAT of all time. I'd say pound for pound at the moment, he's top of my list.
Do you know a female goat is called a doe?
I don't need that negativity in my life right now.
So it was Amanda Nunes the
Some
doe.
good Statman.
That was some Statman quality shit right there.
Loved it.
We've got two questions from at Rory Jones 3. So his first question to the boys is, what would be your walkout song? Statman.
I've gone like kind of a stadium rock feel. I've gone Survival by Muse or Victorious by Wolfmother. I think either would set the right tone in the arena as I walked out to probably get choked out in the first round.
predicts his finish.
Double points for that prediction pod, baby.
Nice, Stoney.
Oh, shit. I can remember watching WWE back in 2003, Triple H and Goldberg, and before the main event, they played a little highlight reel of the rivalry, and in the background they had a song, Enemy by Seven Dust, and instantly it resonated with me, and it quickly became my go-to song whenever I needed a bit of a rev up. That was always the one for me, so I'm going to hold true. Seven Dust Enemy is my walkout song.
Nice. For me, I've talked about this on the podcast before in the early days. My walkout song is Crushed by Parkway Drive. It is a heavy, heavy song. I've got that thing nailed down to every part of my walkout.
Where did you talk about that?
We
I
have
remember
talked
that.
about
What
it. It's
did we
early
talk about
days.
that
Early days.
Was it?
Yeah, very early days, mate.
When you say you've got it mapped out, are we looking at something like an Israel Adesanya 243 choreograph
Kinda.
on the walkout?
I just know when I'm coming through the tunnel out to the stadium. I also know when I'm in front of the cut man. I also know when I'm just about to step in the ring. I've got the beat down pat, and then I know what I'm doing when I walk around the ring. I've spent a lot of time practicing at home.
So much thought into it. Can you tell me, just before you step into the ring, Connor, all the greats have got their move just before they step onto the canvas, and because you've obviously given this more thought than anyone else has, what are you doing before you step in? So you've gone past the cut man, you've walked up the step, you're facing out to the crowd. What's the DL move of choice at this point?
Mate, I'm a big fan of like the crucifix into the sky. You know, when you put the arms straight out, arch the back a little bit,
Shawn Michaels.
mate, and just looks
It's a raven, isn't it?
straight up in the, hanging on a crucifix kind of thing. It's probably a bit morbid way to explain it. But,
I like it. I like
could
it.
have
Easter's coming up.
I could have said, just that intimidation. I'm ready to fight. So
Have you
song.
Have you thought
song
about what
amps me
happens
up.
after the belt?
No, I'll probably get fucking wrecked. So my
Famous Statman choked out round one.
in my one lesson jiu-jitsu, all I learnt was just how to pass the guard, and that was it. So I don't think that's going to
Mate,
protect
you
me.
nailed that session. I was so proud of you.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Never went back after that.
It was a bit weird smell there.
got, Snagz?
Boys, are you okay if I give you two? Obviously, first song and then for first fight and then the second one. I just couldn't break these.
Yeah, it's fine. If it's Titanic, I'm cutting it.
Boys. Oh, God, I can't believe I didn't even think of that. That would be the best walkout music ever. DL play my music. No, I'm joking. So my first one, obviously, for my debut would be Who Let the Dogs Out by Baha Men.
Oh, sick.
I could just see the crowd getting really into that.
Couldn't.
And then after that, because I'm presuming I would have got hit about 1 million times in that first fight, my second one would be Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time.
Brilliant.
Prediction for the fight. Nice.
Yeah, that's how I'd roll. I'd probably win the first fight, obviously by armbar or dar stroke with this fucking 4-stripe white belt I've got around me at the moment. But second fight, don't see it going that way.
At Rory Jones 3, hit us up again with his second question. What two fighters does he feel would produce a super fighter? And I'm thinking he's talking about a birth.
I feel like you've reframed this question. From
It
how you
came
wrote
through very raw. That's probably the best way I can put it.
Agreed.
Very raw. So I've PG'd that just for the podcast so we can keep our rating. Statman.
Yeah, mate.
I've read which two fighters would produce a super fight.
Definitely says.
I've got a completely different answer.
You're a basket case.
Well, Statman, give us what you've got. You can take it as that.
Fight,
You can.
it would be
therefore
either Israel Adesanya or John Jones.
That's terrible.
Or Weili Zhang versus Valentina Shevchenko would be a super fight.
Make it Izzy versus Weili, and you got your answer there. See you later.
Yeah, mate. I reckon get John Jones and Amanda Nunes together in a room might take some convincing, but I reckon we could get like a really complete fighter there.
Nice.
There you go. That's my answer.
Nice. Stoney.
No worries.
I analysed this one for longer than I should have, and
Mate, we all know you did, to be honest. Let's not sing it out there.
to have a super fight,
You know
you've
what
got to
you're
have
looking
someone
at
who's
on quarantine as well, mate, by the group chat, to be
Self-isolation.
honest.
Self-isolation's really stretching it for this boy.
Yeah.
It has. I'm not going to
Subscriptions
lie.
got at the moment.
Sorry, mate. We'll let you go.
Look, to have a super
Okay.
fight, you need someone who can sell the fight. So I've factored that into it. It's not all just about the skill level. So for that purpose, I'm going with Chael Sonnen and Amanda Nunes. And if Amanda Nunes had the charisma of Chael Sonnen, that would be the most marketable fighter in the history of the sport. Elite striking, tick. Black belt, BJJ, tick. Division I All-American wrestling pedigree, tick. Best trash talker in the history of the sport, tick. That is my super fighter right there.
Nice. I've actually got Nunes as a popular choice. So Nunes, and I've got Francis Ngannou. I want Nunes and Francis to produce a little superstar. I don't think they're being little.
We need some punching power to remain in the rest of the gene pool, please. God damn, that would be
It's huge.
that'd be a monster of a fighter.
Throwing some big hands. What have you got?
Look, boys, I've gone a little bit different from everyone. Who would have thought? Not myself. So I've gone a bit of flair and a bit of new age, ready to rock into the UFC very soon. So I've got my boy, of course, because you can't go past this bloke, Sugar Sean O'Malley. Got all the tools of the trade. He's got the flair, he's got the charisma, much like myself, I would say. And then I've also picked my girl, Chelsea Hackett. I
Oh!
think we match those up. We create a super fighter rolling straight into the UFC just to dominate the division, whatever they choose to go in.
Couple of young
So
bucks.
that's my two. Couple of young bucks, mate, because you know what? They're in their prime. They're ready to roll. I think the name just would be absolutely delicious. The Sugar Hammer.
Oh, he's even put some
Sugar
thought into it.
Hammer.
Yeah, that's right, baby.
You thought about this
You heard
more
it
than
here
me,
first.
don't lie.
I didn't actually just come up with about 2 minutes before the pod. That's why I delayed, because I was typing it in.
We'll move on to our next question, boy. This from @CapitalJDog. I think this is going to be a quick one for us, boys. Who do you think Connor fights next?
Guys, I hope he takes on Justin Gaethje. That is who I would love for him to fight next. I honestly suspect that he will fight either Tony Ferguson or Khabib Nurmagomedov next. I think COVID-19 might delay the UFC for a little while, and I think that once it comes back, the UFC will need a marketable fight. If the UFC can get Tony Ferguson and Khabib across the line, which I think if anyone's going to do it, the UFC is going to do it. If they can get that across the line, Conor coming back against the winner will be the biggest money fight to get everyone talking about UFC again. So I would love him to fight Justin Gaethje. I just think that COVID-19 is working against Justin Gaethje here. I think Conor McGregor comes back against the winner of Ferguson Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, look, I'm not too different. I'm going to throw this one out there, and I can't take all the credit because my good friend Ariel Helwani, who I do like, called it first. Depending on how long the coronavirus layoff takes, the UFC is a business, and we know that the business will want to bounce back with a bang. And what a better way to bounce back with the most financially lucrative fight being Conor v. Khabib 2. I see that one on the horizon, and don't be surprised if that one happens.
Yeah, it's saucy. Saucy as. I've actually got Gaethje. I think it's pretty much in stone. Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor. Snags.
Look, I've gone probably a bit of... I think I've been hanging around Stoney too much. Conspiracy theory, boys. Coming in hot. I should have got DL to prepare some music for me, but I have not, unfortunately. Look, I'm going to say that it's going to be our boy Dan Hooker.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to say that it gets booked for Conor versus Gaethje. And then we've got some Tony Ferguson kind of shit going on where he trips over some cords that we've all placed, including Volkanovski, in the weigh-ins. And then our boy Dan Hooker gets a late call-up and absolutely dominates Conor and cements himself as the new GOAT. Actually, that's probably not the way we'll go, but I would like to see that fight. So I'm going to say Dan Hooker via conspiracy theory, boys.
Yeah, I haven't seen Dan Hooker in any of the conversations at all.
Conspiracy theory, mate. It's basically chemtrails, what Stoney's been talking about. He's the Eddie Bravo of our podcast these days. I'm surprised he hasn't brought it up yet.
Our next question comes from @TigersAndGlass. What fighter would you like to bring back from retirement?
I've actually got two that I would desperately love to bring back from retirement, if I could. TJ Grant in the lightweight division was running rampant, 5 straight wins, booked for a title fight in, I believe it was 2013. Rolling jiu-jitsu one day, rolled back, hit his head, and has suffered a traumatic brain injury that persists to this day. So he's been out. He never came back, despite the fact he was booked in to fight for the title. So I would love to be able to heal his brain and bring him back. The other fighter is Adlan Amagov. He is a welterweight fighter who fought in the UFC and Strikeforce. He retired from the UFC in 2013 after just literally destroying TJ Waldberger in one of the most brutal knockouts you'll ever see, so please go watch it. He actually unretired in 2016, won a fight, and then retired again. He's only 33 still. I believe he retired on religious grounds, or he retired on political grounds. And I would just hope that he would come back into the fold, because I think that even now, with one fight in the last 7 years, I reckon he could still be a force in the welterweight division.
What was the political grounds?
I believe it was kind of tied in. I could be completely wrong, and I'll look this up so you can edit
wrong,
this
mate.
out
Don't
if I'm super wrong.
Don't have that negativity about yourself. We all know you're always right.
But I believe it was something to do with cultural pressures and also joining his ability to knock people out and his religious beliefs. He's a devout Muslim, and I don't think thought that MMA and his faith. I could be confusing him with another fighter, but I believe he believed that it was having a Muslim belief and knocking people out for a living. I didn't think that they could go together.
And hand in hand.
I will look this up so you know whether or not to edit this whole thing out, DL, because I don't want to be...
Oh, mate, Craig Stats coming in hot next week. We're going to confirm this.
I want to throw the challenges out to the listeners.
To say he might have retired to become a bricklayer or something like that.
Boys, I'm going to keep this one very short and simple. He's the man of the hour. He's too sweet to be sour. What you see is what you get, and what you don't is better yet. KLP, welcome back to the Octagon, son.
That was brilliant.
That was good.
I've actually gone Misha Tate.
Good pick.
Well, I felt like when I started getting into the sport, didn't see the better years of Misha Tate. So I would like to see Misha Tate in her prime. If I can take Misha Tate in her prime and put her in now, I reckon we could see a dominant Misha Tate. Stoney, you'd be happy with that?
Absolutely. Big Misha Tate fan. I beg to differ. I don't think we see a dominant Misha Tate, but I would love to see her back.
Thank you for your feedback. Snags.
That
was a snag. That was a Snags line.
There. Look, boys, I've gone probably one from left field, and I think Statman will appreciate me on this, to be honest, but I've gone Mr. Internationally himself, Stoney Carter.
Oh,
I
thought you were going to say Pitbull. I was like, what? That's Mr. Worldwide.
Stoney Carter. He was in the UFC, then he was also in Ultimate Fighter, the comeback series, which I think Matt Serra ended up winning. Craig stats for this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stoney Carter actually, I think he KO'd Matt Serra via a spinning back fist, and then he got him with a spinning back fist on the show. And almost
Ultimate Fighter
as well.
4, it was fucking incredible because
the
the entire episode, Matt Serra was talking about how he can't believe that he got caught by this spinning back fist, and then in the fight it happened again. Oh, it's amazing.
It's crazy. I think my most fond memory though was he just wore one glove around for the whole TV series. I think like one sparkly glove. So that's why I want him back, not for the fights, but for the glove.
He reminded me of the MMA equivalent of the Godfather from the WWF.
Like he'd walk around with like Godfather and like HBK or something like that.
That was amazing. He had such a good gimmick.
I wonder what he's doing these days. Stoney Carter, my boy.
Just get him on the pod.
Oh mate, if we could, I would almost get him over Sugar Sean.
Do you want to do a where are they now segment? One time.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Statman would be robbing over that.
100%. I'd love to speak to Stoney Carter. He was a huge character on the Ultimate Fighter 4, like just like ridiculous theatrics, and then he hit Matt Serra with a spinning back fist, and it was like history repeating itself. It was beautiful.
Do you know what, boys? I'll just let you know. Stoney Carter's currently single for the ladies out there. Oh. He's also a bartender and a bouncer at a Mexican restaurant. And he's a personal trainer at LA Fitness's Ravenswood location.
Oh, Stoney.
Nice. Boys, are you ready for something new?
Start, bench, cut.
Stoney, we're going to kick you off first with our first edition of Start, Bench, Cut.
I'm nervous.
That was good.
Now, the boys haven't seen any of these, so we're getting live reactions with these. Just if you haven't seen this concept before, Start, Bench, Cut, you're going to get 3 options. They're all going to be MMA related, obviously, and you're going to need to start one, you're going to need to bench one, and unfortunately, someone's going to get cut. So, Stoney is our first one in.
Start, bench, cut.
Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, Donald Cerrone.
Oh, a very easy one for me, DL. Start Conor McGregor, bench Nate Diaz, and cut Donald Cerrone.
Oh, that's heavy. He's gone in heavy quickly.
Cowboy.
All because. Are we explaining this or not?
Mate, you can. Go for it.
You can if you want.
Yeah.
It's not all day. It's a Q&A, baby.
Simply because I think Donald's running great, and there's still a lot of appetite out there for Conor. Obviously, he's got a lot of big fights. There's still at least one big fight for Nate to have, and that is with Conor. And I just see that as a really easy sequence there, that you start Conor, you bench Nate, and bye-bye Donald. Thanks for the memory.
Excellent. Beautiful.
Start, bench, cut.
Snags.
Oh, yeah. Hit me.
Ric Flair, stand him up. Ole, ole, ole.
Start. Not because of the actual, like, the wolves in the crowd, just because Ric Flair's fucking boss dog,
No
baby.
way. I think you've missed the concept of the 3 categories.
I don't think you actually get Ric Flair.
I'm going to start Ric Flair.
Okay.
Limousine driving. Jet plane flying. Sorry, I got to
You
stop
still
that.
don't understand the concept. You still don't.
Have you guys never seen that before?
Still don't understand the concept.
You don't? I do understand the concept. I'm fucking keeping the wolves, baby.
No, way to ruin it, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, are you answering this question or am I? Because this is my start bench cut, mate, not yours. If you wanted it for you should have let me know, but I'm going to go whichever way I want. So I'm keeping Ric Flair, baby. Starting. I'm going to bench Ole, 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 because I like that one. and then I'm going to cut the other one because I can't remember what it was because that's how bad
Stand
it
'em up.
was. What was it? Stand 'em up. Boring.
On
Stand 'em
the
up's boring.
mat. Yeah, everyone's they hit the mat. Stand them up.
Start Ric Flair, bench, ole, 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 cut, stand 'em up. Done. Don't even insult Ric Flair like that.
Been at a UFC event with you, and you were annoyed with those noises as much as we were.
I was, but I was thinking about my boy Ric Flair just in general, not about the actual things. But I'm sticking with it.
Start, bench, cut.
Statman. 125, 155, 205.
All right. Start 155. Bench 205.
Yep.
I'm going to change it. Bench 125. Cut 205. I think John Jones is alone.
Oh.
No. This is praising
Oh,
John
fuck,
Jones.
here we go
This
again.
is
The
praising
John Jones conversation
Conflict of
comes up
interest,
again.
boys. Conflict of interest.
When Volkan Oezdemir, Johnny Walker, Thiago Santos make up your top 5, your top 10, and John Jones is clearly, I say clearly, is above those fighters. I don't think it creates interest. Whereas 125 has the potential for more depth. I think that, especially if Henry Cejudo went back down and defended his belt in 125. I think that 125 could potentially be a very exciting division. 205 briefly got exciting again in the years after the first Gustafsson fight. And I think it's slowly rescinded in interest. So I would start 155, clearly the best division in the UFC, bench 125 and cut 205.
Can anyone just quickly recap this, right? I think the hatred for John Jones from the Statman, he goes, John Jones clearly, not clearly, above everyone else.
I like how it was. We're benching
Jesus,
205, and then it just triggered that's John Jones' division, and suddenly we're cutting it.
The bells.
John Jones
the
is the best thing about that
that
division.
bloke.
I fucking hate John Jones.
There it is.
Mate, I tell you what, after this podcast, John Jones hates you as well.
Start, bench, cut.
DL, I've got one for you, baby. You're going to love this one. So I've got Paige Van Zandt,
Brilliant.
Joanna Jacek.
Sure.
Did I get that right, Statman?
JJ Jack.
Close enough. And Michelle Waterson,
Stitch up.
karate hottie, baby.
Feel like Stoney gave you this because he wants me to choose. Do you know what? I'm going to be diplomatic, all right? I'm going
that's
to...
It's not how the podcast started.
I think Paige's social work at the moment is excellent. So I'm going to start Paige Van Zandt.
You're not starting her. That's actually saying starting her for the social work is rather interesting.
Mate, it says she's making her cash. So more power to her. And I'm going to bench Michelle Waterson. And I think Joanna needs a spell. The fall from grace.
Dang.
Joanna needs a spell. So I'm going to cut her just so she can get some rest. I needed
Sounds
to
like
take
a
6
firm
months
lie.
off, if not more. Let's go chill. She loves Disneyland. Plenty of time.
Disneyland's all closed, mate.
I'm just looking through.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is. I'm just looking through Paige Van Zandt's Instagram. And Dale has liked every single photo for the past.
You fucking creeper.
I think there's an ulterior motive here, boys.
Start, bench, cut.
Stoney. Brett Okamoto. Ariel Hawani. Luke Thomas.
Oh, gee, I don't have a lot of love for Luke Thomas, but I'm probably not cutting Luke Thomas for obvious reasons. I think Brett Mediocre Moto, or Brett Slow Komodo, whatever you want to call him, I think we cut him because he's dead set useless. I think we bent that Thomas chump. And Ariel Hawani, as I referred to earlier, I actually like him, so we keep him.
Mate,
Did we see the photo with his afro this week
Oh
that he put
my
up?
god.
It is rude, and he went up in my social status at least 2 pegs after seeing that.
Start, bench, cut.
Oh, I was supposed to ask Statman before I did this. Hey, Statman,
Yeah.
how do you say the guy that runs one championship?
Oh, fuck. Give me one sec. I've just got to see it
Chart.
to know it. Chatri. Sit you dong.
What?
Chatri.
Did you just fucking say to me?
Chatri.
Sit you dong.
Sit you dong. Chat.
Can't take this
Bench
shit.
him.
Oh, do you mean
Chat you, sit you
Victor
dong.
Kiwi?
Sit you dong.
You
What's
can
your
say
like?
sit you
Want
dong
there
if
with
you
the
want,
jail?
but you'd be wrong.
Sit you on.
Sit your dong.
Chattery, sit you on. Chattery, sit you on. Chattery.
I think you should keep
Chattery.
all this in the pod. If this gets deleted from the podcast, I am
Ready?
absolutely going to be filthy.
Start. Bench. Cut.
Dana White. Scott Coker. Chattery, sit your tongue.
Chattery? Chattery?
Say again.
Like
Say
chat
the
re?
last one again. I didn't hear. Oh,
Chattery.
Statman. Sorry, I wasn't talking to you. DL, can you please read the question to me? I just couldn't hear you. I had a bit of connection.
Can we have it in the sentence?
I'd like to buy a vowel. the CEO for one championship.
Oh, I don't know actually his name. Can you say
Snagz,
his
just to
name
answer the
so I can
question.
get it right, please.
Chattery. Chattery.
Please say
Chattery.
his name. Chattery what? What's his last name?
Sit-a-dong.
Sit-a-dong. Okay, I'm going to start Chattery Sickadong because you guys got it absolutely wrong. And I love that bloke. And I love, I'm going to have some more 1FC stuff coming up for these other questions in a second. So I'm starting him, baby, because they're coming up on the rise. I'm going to bench Dana because he wouldn't jump off a rock if you remember watching Dana Wright looking for a fight when he's in Hawaii with my girl Rachel. I
Ustovic?
can't say her last name, Statman, just say it.
Oh, he makes fun of me, but then
Yep,
he makes the
that's her.
stat man
Thank you very
talking
much.
to his
One of my
talking.
favourites.
At least I'll have a go.
Well, you didn't have a very good go, that's for sure. It was very poor, so I just threw to the professional, which was Statman, and I got it right. And I'm going to bench Scott Coker. Sorry, same as DL said.
All
So.
good.
That's such a mess.
God,
That
that
is
got
a
fucking a
mess.
bit weird very quickly,
You
didn't
made
it?
it weird.
We should just not have. This was like the time that we had the.
Sorry, was that just a start bench? I thought I didn't know that was the case.
Did you cut one?
You can't
you
just
cut?
bench them all, Snags. You got to make a hard
fun.
call,
This
mate.
is- Oh, I fucking started one,
You
benched
didn't
one,
cut
and
one.
cut
You
one.
benched two.
Yeah, you said
Stop
bench
making a
twice.
mockery.
No, I cut Coker.
Cut him.
Yeah, I cut him at the end. See you later.
Start. Bench. Cut.
DL, I know you are a
You
man
skipped me.
of many travels. I thought it was up to my go, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Snags Radio 74.5 and riding you home tonight on this coronavirus.
Please don't edit this. This is me.
I don't know why you got to edit this podcast. This is fucking comedy gold.
Start. Bench. Cut.
Statman. Now I'm bringing you into the podcast world here.
Yep.
Eru Hawani MMA show. You're Welcome by Charles Sonnen. Believe You Me with Michael Bisping.
I'm actually a fan of all three. I think I will start Ariel Hawani.
Ariel's getting a lot of love in this potty.
Hey, he's been around for a long time. I will bench Believe You Me, Michael Bisping, and I will cut Chael Sonnen only because I have faith that Chael Sonnen he'll be able to pick himself up and he'll be able to dust himself off from this cut, and he'll be able to make something of himself, and he'll probably get in prison for fraud in the real estate market again. But he'll dust himself off again, and he'll run for Republican senator, and he'll probably win it.
I don't know how you say he dusts himself off and then goes to prison. I'm going to dust myself
He got
off.
done.
and
He
go
got
to
done
prison.
for real estate fraud.
Do not pass
I
go.
reckon
Do
I
not
reckon
collect
he'll pick
$200.
himself up, get back into the real estate business. He won't know how to do it on the level. He'll end up in prison. It's fine. Bring himself out, dust himself off again, become a Republican senator. I've got it all planned out for him.
Can I just clarify two things?
I'll tell you what, that is not as vague as any of your fucking picks that you've ever picked in your life. That's for sure. It's very specific.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there. One, it was alleged fraud, so get that right.
All right,
man.
all right.
And two, he
Going in for
can't
his
just go
bike.
back. He can't just go back to real estate because he got a lifetime suspension because of the alleged fraud.
the alleged fraud.
Can't he do it in a different state?
Probably
Where's
American
America
Pride,
White?
right?
Start. Bench. Cut.
All right, last one, Dio. I got you. I know you're a world traveler, my friend. Probably more traveled than any of the boys on the podcast. So I'm going to go UFC venues. I've got Vegas. Oh, hard one. New York. Madison Square Garden, baby. And Brazil. Rio de Janeiro.
So close.
that how you say it?
Brazil.
Sorry, I've had a couple of whiskeys tonight, boys. Apologies. Vegas, New York,
Been to
Brazil.
Vegas, been to New York, haven't been to Brazil. I think you got to. I think I need to start Vegas. I think if you cut Vegas, you're cutting out the UFC. So we're starting Vegas. I'm benching New York, and I'm cutting Rio de Janeiro.
Can I ask you why, when New York has fucked up every event that they've hosted?
Probably personal reasons.
Don't elaborate, please.
Elaborate. I need to hear these personal reasons. This is like when we told Craig we'd tell him how the podcast started.
They're personal.
Is this not a personal podcast? I've shared heaps of personal stuff on this podcast. Sound like you're going to cry over there. You're all right?
Just had some good. I've had some good days in New York. It's fine.
Okay, that's all we need to know, boys, obviously.
You're
Nothing
making it
more,
more
nothing
awkward
less,
than it
deal.
actually
Let's
is.
leave it at that, shall we?
Let's not pry. Let's not pry.
It's a great place. Get around it. Shout out New York. Boys, that was.
Start, bench, cut.
Breaking news with Stoney.
Boys, I just want to start out by saying never has there been a worse or less appealing time to be widely regarded as the number one newsbreaker in the business, because business is slow. Coronavirus is taking over the world, but as we know, the show must go on. So off the top, we have Nico Price, one of the genuine emerging talents in the UFC. He's just signed a 4-fight extension to his current deal. Fight fans will recall that Price is coming off red hot after his uptick KO of James Vick recently, and I'm hearing that there could be a big fight just around the corner for Nico Price, so stay tuned for that one. But boys, some concerning news coming out of American Top Team today, suggesting that our boy Khabib has gone back to his native homeland, Dagestan. Now, I don't know what exactly that means for the Tony Ferguson fight, but with all the travel lockdowns, you can't imagine that that's good news. What are we thinking on that?
100% this fight is not happening in the US. I don't think we had much hope that it would happen in the US, but this pretty much puts the nail in that coffin. I'm wondering if it's a strategic choice to move back to Dagestan. It might be easier flying out of Dagestan, Russia, to other parts of the world, especially Dubai, or maybe they're just going to do this fight in Russia or Dagestan itself. So they might.
Imagine that. What's the
I
stadium
don't think
stat,
there
man?
is. There's some good stadiums in Russia. M1, the promotion used to hold really, really high quality MMA events. You could even go to Poland, but I know that Poland is closing down their venues. But KSW holds events frequently in Poland. You have to imagine that Dagestan, it's probably a generalization, probably has less stringent security measures in place to stop flights out to other countries than the US, obviously going into a near complete lockdown at the moment due to COVID-19. So I don't think that this news necessarily bears good for the Tony Ferguson Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. But I hope I'm looking on the bright side. I'm hoping that they've made this a strategic decision to place Khabib in the closest proximity to be able to fight this fight.
Yeah, I think it's concerning, but I have faith.
We just broke news, and I'm not Brett Okamoto. I'm not going to go back on my word and completely contradict myself less than 24 hours after breaking a story. This isn't amateur hour with Okamoto or anything like that. This is breaking news with Stoney, boys, so let's get it together. But being an eternal optimist, I'd just like to point out that Dagestan is only one solid road trip from Dubai. With that in mind, it's roughly the equivalent of Melbourne to Perth, and as someone who's done that drive before, I can tell you firsthand, when I got to Perth, I was fresh, I was ready to start swinging. So I'm still holding firm to breaking news with Stoney from yesterday. This one still looks like it's going to happen in Dubai through my eyes.
Yeah. Do you know what? Dagestan. I can't even say it. How do you say it again? Oh, no, I've got the wrong state anyway. Don't worry about me. I'm looking up something in fucking Iran, boys. I was like, mate, it's only a 5-hour flight. There's only 1 out each day, though. Unfortunately, that is not true.
Amazing.
Good chat, boys. CL, good luck, man. Good luck with all that.
Boys, it's only a 2-hour and 30-minute flight, and you can grab one on Peebdode Airlines for $87. Fucking get me there now.
They're
Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Let's get back into the Q&A, boys. This first one is from @GR390RY. Who are your top Aussie fighters yet to fight in the UFC?
Well, number one, sorry to whoever you are, but that is a terrible username. Number two, Michael Tobin, the Great White. I think the man is ready for the UFC now. He's 16-2 in the featherweight division. Only knock on his career is the frequency that he fights, and the only reason why he can't find fights is because he can't find people who are willing to fight him. So he's got an 18-month layoff currently. Someone fight the man and give him the win that he needs to get into the UFC.
Yeah, look, Tobin is a good pick. I've gone a bit different. I've gone right back to the grassroots. There's a 21-year-old training out of Australian elite team in Melbourne. Goes by the name of Tommy David. He's 1-1 in Hex, but don't let that fool you. He's got a rangy frame, good length, good hands. He's already genuinely elite with his jiu-jitsu. He'll be an absolute gem, mark my words. He's coming off a bit of a layoff because he's had his teeth messed up in a BJJ tournament recently. But he'll be back, and I'm putting my entire reputation on this one. Not only the number one newsbreaker in the game, but I'm also putting this one up, the number one talent scout on the podcast. Over to you, boys.
For me, I've gone Casey O'Neill, the king. She's pretty dominant. So I'm looking forward to seeing her in the UFC one day. Sugar.
Look out. Look, I've gone a couple because it says fighters with an S. So I've actually got three. Got our boy, the gentleman's walk-off himself, John Fraser. After that knockout, I would love to see him in the UFC. I've obviously got our girl, Chelsea Hackett, as well, podcast fan favourite. Boys, the biggest one, and I'm surprised the Statman didn't give us this to us, is Martin Eugen, 1FC double
Martin
champ.
Win?
No, Martin Eugen. His name's not fucking Win. It's N-G-U-Y-E-N.
That's how you pronounce win.
Do you not know this bloke?
Win.
Yeah. It's Win.
How do you fucking pronounce that shit?
Yeah. Martin Win.
Win.
His name,
Let me get
his
this
name's
straight.
Martin Win.
Where was I up to? I'm starting
Let's
again.
keep this rolling. Let's keep it rolling. Snagz has got three. Let's see if he can pronounce one.
I'm starting again. Start again. Boys, I've got three because it obviously says fighters, if you don't mind. So I've got John Fraser, the gentleman's walk-off himself, who we had a post about the other week. I've got our girl, fan favourite of the podcast, Chelsea Hackett. And then I've got, I'm surprised the Statman didn't say this himself, but Martin Wing, the 1FC double champ. Coming over to UFC should be a big thing if he does get there one day.
Obviously,
Thoughts?
yeah, Martin Win's a fantastic fighter as well. Chelsea Hackett, no doubt. I was hoping that her win might have caught some eyes and got her on the Perth card, so that should be exciting.
Excellent. Next question. We've got two questions, a two-parter. So it's at Gamma Alana. How do you think the crowdless events will affect the sport as a whole? And do you think that changes the atmosphere, and could that affect the fighter's performance?
So, I mean, I think everyone will remember the event without a crowd, so I think it's a good novelty, but I hope it doesn't... I can't see it taking off after the coronavirus goes away. I don't think that they'll do, like, crowdless events or anything like that. I think it lacks something. The crowd can turn... Like, a UFC event, early prelims in Australia is normally... The crowd is filling the stadium at that point, and it can turn a fight with like two unknown Australian fighters, or two unknown fighters in general, into an event. And you saw like last year, the fight of the year for I think it was Stoney and DL had Brad Riddell and Jamie Malarkey as fight of the year, and that was because we were there live. The crowd was pumping, and that fight was absolutely bonkers. So the crowd can really add to a fight and make it feel bigger than it actually is. So as far as how the change of atmosphere without the crowd can affect a fighter's performance, I don't think it's possible that it wouldn't affect their performance, especially going into a hotbed like Brazil. You kind of prepare yourself for that crowd response. Everywhere I go, I'm expecting the crowd to be booing me. So if I go into a place and there's no crowd booing me, I just don't show up, So it'd feel like a sparring session without the audience.
Look, I think in terms of the crowdless events, they're short-lived. But if you take the horrific circumstances away from why they're actually doing this, I actually love the novelty. And I can picture DL and myself watching UFC 400 years from now, reminiscing on that novelty factor of 2020 when you had the best fighters in the world fighting in front of a cameraman and no audience. I think there's something a little bit special about that in light of all the reasons that we're doing it. In terms of the change in atmosphere, potentially, I know there's fighters who really rely on the crowd and that adrenaline to bring the best out of themselves. But then on the other hand, there's a lot of fighters who are dead set animals in the gym, but then they can't put it all together under the bright lights and in front of a screaming crowd. Neil Magny, who I referenced on the last podcast, he's one who's typically underperformed relative to his ability behind closed doors, and James Vick's another. So in short, yes, change in atmosphere would unquestionably affect the fighters, some for the better and some for the worse.
Crowdless events, I think, how can I put this? The Contender Series, that's probably the reason why I really like the Contender Series, so I can actually hear the coaching and I can hear the raw atmosphere of it. As a novelty, it's great. But as a professional environment where you're getting two professionals in a cage, you want the atmosphere of the crowd. So I think that affects the sport as a whole, and obviously the UFC, on any MMA pay-per-view, they are also relying on that gate money as well. So it'll affect the sport greatly. Changes the atmosphere a lot. I think maybe Johnny Walker might have been different in that Brazil card if he had an actual Brazilian crowd behind him. Who knows? Because he didn't do a lot when he was on the ground. So maybe would have spurred him on and we could have seen a different fight.
Look, I think the biggest effect for it is the same as you boys are saying in terms of the fighter's performance. I know, like, if you think about it, we get into like a 3-round, you guys are into the last round, or even a 5-rounder, and we go into the 4th round. Like, sometimes that crowd can really swing the fight. And it can kind of get you amped up at home as well, just to watch it and get you in the atmosphere. And then also, thirdly, the announcer's going to have to bring their A games, because otherwise they're going to be announcing lawn bowls, boys. Yes, he takes him into half guard and then uses the knee shield to pass and then goes into side mount. He's look at that, boys. He's gone into mount, full mount. Who would have thought? So, yeah, I think it affects the overall theatrics of the fight, and while it's enjoyable to hear the corners and stuff like that, I think it makes it a bit more raw and authentic, but I'd like to get the crowd back involved pretty quickly.
Yeah, nice. This is our final question, boys. There was a few more questions, but this podcast's nearly gone for an hour, so this is our last one. At Mick Walsh, number 1, if the UFC and SpaceX teamed up for the first intergalactical MMA match on the International Space Station, who would be your pick out of the current UFC fighters to fight? Keep in mind, zero gravity would mean they weigh the same.
I'm going to take a leap of faith here, and I'm going to assume that the aliens that our UFC fighters are fighting have the same breathing apparatus that we do. They need oxygen to live. I'm assuming that the International Space Station is oxygenated for this effect. In that case, I would send Damian Maia or Jacare Souza. I think in a zero-gravity situation, it doesn't really matter. They're going to come together. You're not going to be able to put much force behind your punch, but you can still get wrapped up and strangled in the middle of a zero-gravity situation. So I'm sending some of the elite grapplers in the UFC to choke the hell out of whatever alien scum dares to step foot on our International Space Station.
Nice. Stoney.
That's it. Look, I'd just like to congratulate Mick Walsh for sending through an excellent question. But I'll be honest, I don't even know where to begin to answer this. So all I'm going to say is that I'd like to see D. Devlin square up against Paige Van Dant in a wet T-shirt contest. Snag.
Oh, Jesus. I think you've thrown to the wrong person as well, and we don't want to know about your subscriptions, mate. I've told you once, won't tell you twice.
I've been in isolation. We've covered this.
Shout out to Mick Walsh. This is a great question. I think it was inspired by, there was a bit of an edit going around with Elon Musk and Joe Rogan on the moon with Khabib and Tony Ferguson, which was pretty cool. So I think this is the perfect environment for the Henry Cejudo Valentina Shevchenko fight. This is the venue. This is on. I'd like to see that for the first intergalactic belt.
Is it hair versus hair match? Loser shaves their head. I hope Henry doesn't lose, boys, because that is a fucking fine flock, that's for sure.
It's Valentina all the way on that card.
Look out. All right, boys. Well, my one, I've got a bit of a doozy. I'm going for my boy Derek Lewis, getting into those heavyweight rankings. And then, look, everyone loves Derek Lewis, but everyone needs an American hero. So Derek Lewis versus Colby Covington for the Intergalactic World Championship. And mate, should be a good fight. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'd be worried about that fight.
What for? What's your worry?
I wouldn't go the heavier man in space.
They're zero gravity. You don't think Derek Lewis is working on that fitness at home in fucking quarantine? How dare you?
Anyway, boys, that wraps up episode 20 of this Q&A podcast. Like always, if you like what we're doing, hit us up on all our socials. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. That really, really helps us. That wraps up episode 20, boys. My name is Daniel.
My name is Suga Snagz.
My name is Craig.
My name is Stoney. Oh, I'd never finish off, do I?
Yeah.
Oi, that's what your missus said as well. Leave that in there,
Leave that
boys.
in.
Finish
And
it
we'll
off.
run it back.
Thanks for running
Leave
it
it
back
in.
for us.
And we'll run it back next time on the Run It Back podcast.
Have a
See you,
good
boys.
I get you every time. Every time I get you at the end of the podcast.
With what?
You led yourself into that one, baby.
Oh, no, 100% you got me. But when were the other ones at the end?
Oh, every time, every podcast. listen to it back.
Never.
You'll hear it.
Never. You're talking bully. You're like Bruno Komodo. You'd be best mates.
I've actually got him on speed dial over there.
Let's get out of here.
I don't know how you're going to edit that, honestly.
I know, it's a fucking saga of a podcast.
Leave it. Just leave it.